In 1994, my friend Anthony Sarchipone and I made Stomp Hard, The War and Words of Bill Shields, a very amateur documentary about the poet Bill Shields. In the late 1980s and early 90s, Shields was a fixture in a certain nook of the U.S. literary scene. It was the heyday of small presses and underground zines. Shields had done a lot of small press work, co-founding Zealot Press with Richard Blevins in 1981. But he'd become known for his own writing soon enough. His output was voluminous and often undeniably striking. Not always, but often. I first learned of Shields through a 1991 newsletter from Henry Rollins' publishing outfit, 21361 Publications. Human Shrapnel, Shields' first perfect-bound poetry collection, would be published by 21361 that year. There were advance blurbs from Iggy Pop, Tom Waits, and Hubert Selby Jr. There would be 3 more 213 books over the next few years. Throughout, the vivid, economical poetry was filled with searing images of life as a fighter in the Vietnam War, and accounts of vet life back home in the U.S. that were just as harrowing. PTSD moments, regrets, the loss of a daughter thanks to Agent Orange, rage. In 1992, I was flabbergasted when my own small press at the time received a submission from Shields. We published it and continued to work with him until I left to start a new press. I kept putting Shields out there for years, becoming his default micropress publisher, while 21361 published quality paperback collections. Over time, though, Shields griped about Rollins more and more, painting him as a scoundrel. It didn't track at all with my third-party sense of who Rollins was, but I thought, why would Bill lie? Then, in 2004, Verbicide magazine published journalist Seth Gotro's excellent exposé, Bill Shields, the U.S. Navy SEAL Who Never Was, about which its author has written elsewhere, quote, "As I started researching his life, I found out a curious thing. Bill Shields never was a U.S. Navy SEAL, nor did he ever serve a day in Vietnam, in combat or otherwise. He never had a daughter who died of cancer from his exposure to Agent Orange. This daughter did not, in fact, even exist." Stomp Hard, The War and Words of Bill Shields was made in 1994, well before all that, and with Shields' full cooperation. My friend Anthony Sarchipone and I packed up his little Volkswagen Beetle with a bunch of video equipment we borrowed from work and drove from Long Island, New York to near Harrisburg, PA, and back, all in one day, in dead summer heat. Shields, who I'd been publishing and communicating with, and would do so for several years, came off that day as gracious, humble, intense, only a little larger than life. He seemed like the real deal to me as an impressionable younger poet. But it wasn't just me. Shields was very committed to his facade and pulled the wool over the eyes of all his publishers. Rollins, the countless small literary mags that published Shields enthusiastically, me, plus so many others who'd put faith in Shields simply because the power of his words was that compelling. I was part of a mostly male circle of writers who'd rallied together with Shields as our center and adopted cause and figurehead. It makes sense that angry young men, like myself at the time, would be drawn to Shields. There was a hard-boiled machismo in a lot of his writings. A lot of it today might be considered toxic. But while his poems could often be heavy and brutal reads, they were impressive and economically composed. Shields would often talk to me about Japanese haiku masters like Basho and Issa. He seemed to me, in his way, of a lineage with them. Plus, Shields was processing and surviving all the horrors in his mind through his work. He was frank and honest. There was reason to admire him, so it seemed. But it was all, according to Gotro's article, predicated on a big lie. Shields was just another case of what's known as stolen valor, the shameful and shockingly common phenomenon of people claiming military experience they did not have. We'd made a quote-unquote documentary film about a disgraceful liar. Shields would in time start writing about new exploits as a repo man, also nearly all fabricated. Adding insult to injury, Stomp Hard wasn't a good movie either. We had no budget, and we learned, or didn't learn, the equipment as we went. I wasn't a filmmaker, I wasn't a biographer, just a small press kind of guy who thought Shields was a killer poet and wanted other people to know. What you'll see in the film is, sadly, the best we could do. But it is an interesting little movie. Watch it and see for yourself as Shields drops dark but somehow beautiful little poetry bombs one minute, and then goes on about his dead daughter who never was the next, or the plight of the Vietnamese citizens who were left behind to live with the unfathomable mess that he'd actually had no part in making. Stomp Hard is a document of delusion, Shields's and mine, and others like me, for believing in him to the point of evangelization. And then there's all the unused footage and transcriptions. There's a good story here. Speaking in 2022 about making Stomp Hard together, Anthony said to me, "It's like we caught Bigfoot on camera by accident." Here's the film itself, which has rarely been seen. Make sure to put on closed captions, because the sound is bad.
Even that fucking ground was dead. We'd ride patrol boats down brown rivers and see cracked brown mud and swamp without vegetation for miles, hours. The occasional bush or tree would be all that was left in acres of mud and swamp. No animals, no jungle, dirt falling into an already filthy sewer. It was a good place to be. No one, and I mean no one, ever bitched about Agent Orange over there. I could have kissed Dow Chemical on its corporate ass. It trimmed the wings of that nasty ghost hummingbird, Mr. Charles. But it was damn sure strange looking at those miles of the Sahara Desert in the middle of the jungle. But if I had known that the defoliant was going to kill us, I'd have taken the Kong on without a weapon and a mouthful of spit. When my own daughter died from my exposure to Agent Orange, I did load up weapons into my escort and lit for the corporate headquarters of Dow and Death. And that's another story. Yeah, I did. I took, right after my daughter's death, I had a Ford Escort. And I loaded it up with a lot of guns, 2 grenades. And I turned around, I was heading out. And I was going to do them. I mean, I was definitely going to do them. And I got tired. I mean, I had just come from the Mayo Clinic. I'd come from a funeral. I'd come from like weeks of all this just terrible stuff. You know, watching my daughter, you know, holding her in my arms and like driving like an insane son of a bitch to the Mayo Clinic saying, "You save her." And going through all that stuff to where it caught up with me. And I was just so tired, I couldn't go and, you know, I just quit. I said, that's it. And then I took it in myself. You know, the reason it was stopped, the Vietnamese government complained about all the miscarriages, all the deformed children. Because, I mean, we were there for a year and gone, you're home. Those people were there for the duration. And it ruined not just the farmland, we're talking about a generation of children. Well, have we forgotten about that in America? We're not the only people here. Is the Vietnamese stayed. They had to live with that shit. It's in their groundwater, it was in their food. Do I blame the country? I'll tell you what I blame. Yeah. Dow Chemical. And I'll address this, I'm talking right to the camera, I'll address this to all you pricks at Dow Chemical. I get my hands on the man that developed Agent Orange, I will kill you. I will fucking kill you. I will spend the rest of my life in jail, but I'm gonna fucking take you out. Okay. When I write what I consider a really good poem, it's when I have rage in me. And I'll write a really good poem, what I consider is a good poem for me. I took it into the words, yeah. I mean, we all keep coming back into the words, but they're what you make of it, you know, and it's like, the key there was to, yeah, take it away from the physical act of doing it and putting it into the mental act, creating with it instead of destroying with it, yeah. And it's gotten better over the years. I don't have a lot of hate for myself. I don't have a lot of acceptance for myself either, but I've been working that out for years to where there's no self-destruction, there aren't bodies falling from my hands, and especially not my own body falling from my own hands. In my first tour, there was a point that I really realized, like, you know, you start hearing body count, kill ratios, you know, 150 to 1, and you start thinking, Well, when I get to 152, do I get smoked? And, you know, it's like someone will drink a Budweiser to me on the end of a river bar and say, Shields is okay, you know, but he's gone. That's what we did. I mean, you got to push on. Yeah, we felt real expendable. This was like an initiation for a SEAL team member in Vietnam. First tour, there was 2 of us. We were brand new. I'd never seen this guy had never seen me. They took us out in the woods, out in the bush, and we were to smoke, play a radio, make noise, chew gum, become incredibly visible in the dark. And we did for a while, and they had a sniper set up about 250 yards away from us. And the guy and I were smoking, talking quietly, very quietly. And it was dark, and after a while we got back to back, sat down. We had no guns, no grenades, not even a knife, totally unarmed. It was probably 2, 3 in the morning. I heard crack, and I heard a man crash around, like right here, pow. Thump, and he fell right on top of me. Crack, another one fell, another one fell, another one fell, another one fell. I'm up, you know, I can't see anything. It's so black, I can't see anything. And the sniper got everybody. And what it was, a Viet Cong patrol that found us and slithered on up. And the guy, you know, and it was a lesson to let us know that you don't know shit about war, kid. You didn't hear him coming. You weren't ready for him coming. And I didn't hear him coming. It was weird. It was really strange. I didn't hear him coming. I mean, we weren't making a noise. Nothing, man, nothing. And this guy had gotten all the way up to right here. Bang, right here. I mean, he fell over right on top of me. And I felt it, I heard a crack at the same time. It was so strange. That was my first or second, it had been my second night in Vietnam. And it was to let you know nothing, kid. You got a lot to learn. But all right, got a lot to learn. A few months later, I would have heard them coming 20 minutes before I would have gotten them. I would get them, you know. But it was I was 18 years old, man, you know, and it was like, here it is. So I came back, I had blood all over me, and it was like, welcome to the real world. That was one hell of an initiation. So a lot of the names on that wall are from stupidity. Not the men's stupidity, the army stupidity. To go over and fight in that war at that time, you needed a lot of training. You needed to have been taught how to fight in a guerrilla war. To be a really good writer, you better be a guerrilla fighter. My daughter's death my mother died, my daughter died all within like 6, 8 months. And yeah, it was I mean, I've had bad times in my life, but it was like, there were the years of walking around dead, you know, just totally dead. And again, the words are what saved me. You know, I mean, I put everything I got into those words. I've said, well, if I'm going to live for any goddamn reason at all, it's going to be, I better be an incredible writer, or be the best writer I can be as whatever, honest or as real of a writer. Be the writer I'm not reading. And 84 or so, I started writing about Vietnam. I've been wanting to write about it, just wouldn't come. And I'm running a printing press, man. I'm running a 2-color Hamada 800. And it was all of a sudden the first fucking poem about Vietnam just fell out of my head. You know, it's like, bang, I've been waiting all my life for it. Easter, 1981. A sheet of skin left on a rented bed. I could hear breathing from the bathroom. There was a bag of frozen food thawing on the table. I looked at pictures of a mother and a father hung on the wall. The phone rang and my ex-wife was attached with cries. My daughter had just been diagnosed with leukemia the day before. There was the sound of one motor running. The joys I've had, I mean, I get a lot of, yeah, sheer joy out of writing, yeah, sure. Yeah. I also just, excuse me, get that sense of being alive, which I have a problem with sometimes. I feel very dead. And You know, I feel alive. I mean, it gives me good emotion. I mean, good or bad, it's emotion. And emotion in any form for a Vietnam veteran is good. Good or bad, you know, because we always fight that shit of going dead inside. We all do. And, you know, they put the terms on it, survivor's guilt, delayed stress. I mean, put whatever term you want on it, but you have the problem of going emotionally dead. And anything that makes me feel alive is good. And it does. For the words to have any sense of vividness, for the words to have an intensity, the words to have any universality, you've got to be struggling, you've got to be fighting with yourself, with the world around you. And if you don't have it, if life is pretty bland and pretty goddamn easy, if you have an audience every morning, you're going, hi class, let's talk about Robert Burns, and they're listening to every word, hanging on every word. Where's the struggle? I'll tell you what, when I started writing about Vietnam, I thought, you know, I have a real responsibility to write so this memory will not be left in the dirt. This memory can't be forgotten, it can't be ignored. I have this responsibility of the dead. Working a regular job has kept me honest. Blue-collar jobs keep me honest. But it's hard to come after a 10-hour shift and get on that Macintosh and lie. Then you just threw the whole day away. It was all for nothing. You go back there and say it truthfully. When I personalize Vietnam to me and you, I handle Vietnam real well. If I try to look at a larger picture of it, it would all fall apart. When I looked at it like there was a certain Viet Cong tax collector I'm trying to hit, yeah, the war was okay, then I understood the war. When I had specific, and they knew this, they give us specific missions, it became a challenge and a personal thing. But if you'd say, well, I want you to go over there because it's the right thing to do, and like, no, it's not. Or even if it is, who cares? Make it personal. With me, it was always personalize it. The more personal you make your writing, the more universal it will become, the more appealed it will be. Yeah, I've thought about that too, where I thought, hell, it'd be easy to pull back, and if you don't, it's harder to write because it rips you apart. It'll rip you in half. But goddamn, you gotta do it. Okay, delayed stress syndrome. He was a new kid, a helper on the press next to mine. Barely 19 with a mouthful of Copenhagen snuff. He was going to spend the day dipping ink out of a press, changing plates and loading the paper, sweating bad from the minimum wage. They dropped a carton of paper to the floor and must have weighed a good 150 pounds and it exploded. I went to the floor looking for the mortar flash. Ready, real ready for a firefight. My heart pounding my ribs, goddamn adrenaline closing my throat and my vision. I remembered where I was. And it embarrassed me so much that I walked over and squeezed his neck hard, warning him. Delayed stress syndrome. And I just came back from having the umpteenth physical with the VA and finding out my liver functions were completely out of whack, and I was having some what I call chloracne, some Agent Orange problems. And I'm in this elevator with the Lieutenant Commander of the United States Navy. And it was one of the sweetest moments. This lifer piece of shit officer, who the only reason he was an officer was because of a few years of college. Those few years were supposed to make him so much more knowledgeable than me and give him such a better standard of living than me. And I'm in this, my hair was about as long as this, and I just looked at him and I said, fuck you, asshole. I spit on him. And it was, I grabbed him, of course. And it was a real tender, sweet moment. It was like the birth, you know, it felt great. Because he was everything I hated. And by 72, my thinking had totally changed after all. It took me a long time to adapt to America. Is the letters from home felt really, they were good, but they were almost unearthly. You know, it was like, and I always look forward to getting them. My mother wrote me all the time, but it was not of a, it was of an unreal nature. It's sick, it's perverse, it's war. If there's 400 of them and 15 of you and they're running at you, there is no more scary feeling in the world. I don't care how well trained you are, there is nothing. Makes an IRS audit and all this look like puppy shit, which it is. when you got 400 fucking, you got a battalion of Viet Cong coming at you, and there's 5 of you, and there is nowhere but your feet, and you to head out of there, that's probably the worst feeling in the world. I mean, as far as fear, you will come in contact with fear big time. And you have that moment that freezes you, and then you have that moment you haul ass. But what you see right then is absolute fear. Fear of, you go ahead and right now put a gun on my goddamn head, and I won't feel the fear of that, of facing 400 people running down a ravine, and they're coming to get us. There's no fear like that. That's the reason the rest of your life you just do a lot of laughing, but like, so what? Jail cell, so what? I'm still alive. I don't have 400 of them coming at us. You know, that's where non-vets, we do have that problem with this world now, because it's like the highs and the lows are never going to equal that. But you write something that's will shake someone's head, will maybe make them think for 1 minute. And again, it's you. It's nobody else. There's nothing like that. There's nothing else you're going to do much in this life that you alone, without a committee decision, without a group decision, or one other person's input, it's up to you, to do, that the writing will always do. It's you. They reject you or accept you, but it's you. And there's nothing like that. Nothing. Nothing. 42 years of stomping on this motherfucking planet, there's nothing like it. Trust me. Advice from a man who should have died and been long. Don't panic death. Let the idiot next door dance on its floor. There are 1,000 lies about heaven and hell, and they are lies. No one comes back. No one. The junkie with the needle in his arm feels just as immortal as you, and he is. Your grave is to be expected and despised. I've seen hundreds of deaths, each one wanting one more minute, another day, one more chance to kill the guilt. Well, it just ain't in the bottle. You'll never know when your lips turn blue, your blood riding the sleeves of the embalmer's shirt. Stomp hard, pound fist through the clock. This time is yours.
But that was all pretty much untrue, of course. What an embarrassment. At least the film festivals I sent it to all rejected it. In the 10 years between Stomp Hard and the Verbicide article, Shields and I kept working together. When I heard about the article, I told Shields to simply be honest with me, and I'd be there to listen. After a little sputtering, he simply hung up. He and his poetry more or less disappeared from the scene all at once. What's happened to him and what's been uncovered about him since then? As Shields says in Stomp Hard, that's another story. Maybe it'll get told. There are 2 important things to never forget in trying to tell it, though. First is that Shields traded on the experiences of veterans and war victims, and exploited people's sympathies and pocketbooks. His books are out of print for good reason. The second is that we may never know what the truth is, but we can be pretty sure what it isn't.